Hey everybody, so welcome to part two. This is going to be about the monster blueprint. So we're going to set up the very basic functionality of getting the monster, gonna walk to the player, it's going to play an attack animation, and then as well as if the monster gets too far from the spawn, it's just gonna go right back to the start. So from there, what I do want to show is that I am using another asset right now. So I am using the Punch animation pack that was made by Infected Fury many years ago. I'm not making the animations myself. That's a lot more work into something. But they're feel free to take this. This was about $3. There's a bunch of other animation packs out there as well. You may find some free ones online. Just go ahead and use that. But just letting you know what I'm using. Another thing is under, let's see, monster core. I do have a monster function library. This is just very generic stuff just to make my life slightly easier. All it does is set Blackboard values. If you don't know what that is at this time, then don't worry about it. But just makes myself a bit easier. I just get the Blackboard, set it to value, and then get the return value as well. Um, Sorry, this is the setting one. That's the get. But nonetheless, let's get into it. So, for starters, one thing that I actually missed is that I did not make an AI controller. So, it's going to be pretty hard to control this monster if we don't have an AI controller. So, I'm going to grab that AIC monster. We're going to go into here. What we want to do is on possess. So, once this controller gets control of the monster, it'll now run the behavior tree, which we have previously created, which is the monster standard. So we'll go into there, save, and for now, that's all we're going to do here, and we're not going to touch that. Right, and then the next thing we need to do is for the monster, go to class defaults, type in AI, or controller. I think that's faster. Okay, AI controller class, go here, and just switch it to AIC monster. So that way, this is now going to use that behavior tree. Cool. Oh, sorry. Let me delete that real quick. All right. So we got the controller. We have. So sorry about that. And now the next thing we want to do is we're going to set up the construction script here. So from there, we're going to need to get the data from the data asset that we set up. So what we'll want to do is under variables set data, we want to look for the data asset that we use. So if we actually went over here, we're using monster info. Actually, I want to rename this to monster data. I just think that's just a bit easier for us to search for a variable. Compile. And let's go monster data. Bam. So now we have DA monster data. And then we're going to set that to instance editable. And then we also want to do is expose on spawn. The purpose for that is that when we create the monster in the spawner, we'll be able to just set the data there. So from here, we're going to want to get this, change this to a validated get. And then from there, we are going to want to set the animation class as well as the skeletal mesh as well. So let's get the model. We're going to want to get the mesh as well. Set skeletal mesh asset. And then connect here. And then another thing that we need to do is that under the data asset of the monster data, we set this to anim blueprint, and this actually has to change to anim instance, and then change it to class. Uh, Previously, I set to the animation blueprint. However, I had to go recheck the tutorial that Ryan Laley made on his Pokemon stuff, and he ran into the same issue where he ended up just switching it to the anim instance. That is where I got the influence for this construction script as well. So really great tutorials from there, as well as Ali. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I'll. They have really great tutorials out there, especially if you want to go even more in depth in smart AI. So from here, we have that compiled. What we'll have to do is under these data assets, we'll have to fix these back into Quinn. Awesome. Just saving all of them. You don't really need to. You could just do the save at the bottom. But all right, going to there. That should be good. Shouldn't have to touch that. We'll get to the spawner later. From here, we're gonna want the get NM blueprint. I'm gonna duplicate this just because I don't like having tons of wires everywhere. Set NM instance class. We'll connect here, and then double click for the reroute node, and then cool. So with that, we should have the class and skeleton mesh. This is just so that whatever the data is set, it'll enter there. Cool. Next thing we'll need to do is go into the spawner. So under blueprints, open this spawner. Where it's set to monster class, spawn actor, I'm actually going to disconnect this right now and delete that at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the monster class itself. So BP monster. And this is so the data asset that we set to expose would be available here. Now, another thing we could do is that we could do this and connect it here. And then off of this, let's refresh here. We could do, I think we would have to like cast it. Yeah, we would have to cast this into monster and then set data and then promote that to a variable. And then you could do that, which would work in the construction script without actually changing. But that's a lot more effort than I'd want to do right now. The reason for wanting to do this later on, possibly, is that for the monster class, right now we just set to normal. So like what if we wanted the monster to spawn, but instead of just standing there, maybe you want them to patrol an area, or any other type of like monster class. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this manually to here, and then the data asset go in here. And then you can also just promote to variable as well. And then for this, we want to make that instance editable as well so that the spawner itself can select it there. I'm going to move this just slightly over just so available. And what that does is if we go into the world, select here. Let me make this a little bigger. Under data, you'll be able to select. So if I do Quincy, if we hit play, we'll see that Quincy is there. If we were to change this to Quinn Y, and we'll see Quinn Y is there. So like that does work. Awesome. So we have it. It can spawn the monster, selects the data, changes the model, changes the animation. The animation is not as important if everybody's using typically the same, but if you have people using different types of animation blueprints, that's where the anim class instance comes in handy. All right, so next, what we'll want to do is underneath our blueprint here, not blueprint, behavior tree, we are going to need the character to attack the player whenever the player gets within a certain range. Now, there's two ways that we could go about doing it. One of them is doing what most tutorials out there will show you, which is based on AI sense, which could be if you make like noise, if you are in line of sight. So those are really great tools to use. I'm going to go for another route, which is basically if the player just gets too close in any direction, then the monster will set it as the attack target and go to them and attack. So I'm going to just do a sphere collision. So the moment the player enters that sphere, they'll attack. And many other rules, like as long as they're not currently attacking somebody else, etc. So for that, let's go into this. Let's go into the viewport. What I want to do is add a sphere collision. And the reason I'm using a sphere is because I want it to attack no matter where you are. If you get anywhere near the monster, it's just going to attack, regardless if it sees you or not. I'm thinking like very generic, like MMO, RPG type monsters. Like they're just standing in the world, but you get close and they're like, all right, go attack. So you could have like a mob of like 8 of them and they go do that. So for here, I'm going to name this, let's go with trigger range. Trigger attack range. Okay. And then obviously, let's increase the size. Let's go for 550. And then if we were to zoom out, we'll see that we have the sphere around. So anybody that increases it to here will come attack them. Now, there's other things that could complicate using a sphere to where you might want to go into something else. Like, for example, what if somebody was underneath them? That means somebody would run, go down, and then go attack. So you may not want that. So you would probably still have to do something along the lines of sight. You could mix the two. So with the sphere collision, let's say somebody overlapped. If they can see them, then go attack, etc. But then again, at that point, you might as well just use AI sense. There's no point in overcomplicating it. All right. So with that, let's go into here. What I'm going to want to do, scroll all the way down, and then on component begin overlap. So this is going to go off the moment the player has overlapped in that sphere. So something I always like to do is A. So this is just a check to make sure it is a type of class. As long as your characters all stem from one class, this would work. Now, if you have different type of character classes, they don't all stem from like character or something. Well, every person's going to stem from character, but like if you have a parent class, different parent classes, etc. So you could use character. So as long as everybody's a character, but then again, if your monsters are a character, it's going to register that as well. So for that, I'm just going to go for top-down character and branch. So this just checks that if the person that overlaps is in fact the top-down character, which is our player, then it'll be true. And then the next thing I'm going to need is that I'm going to need to set this player as the attack target. So we're going to have to go back into here, click this blackboard button on top right, add key and object, and we'll attack target. Save and move back over here. And now the next thing we're going to need to do is set that target. So this would be set or get blackboard, set blackboard as object. And then this is where we would connect the pin. Now, this is where my function library comes in handy for myself, is what I want to do is just set BB as object. This just makes my life a little easier. I drag out itself. I'll have a link to the Google Drive in case you want to use it, but really you don't need to use it. It's just something that I do for myself. So we would want to connect that. And let's do this. Promote this as well. And what we'll want to do is set this to attack target key. It makes it a lot easier to reference the key. This is something that Ali does very commonly in his videos, and I found it to be extremely helpful. Make sure to compile the default value, change it to attack target. The other thing he does show is that just copy this, go into here and paste. Oop. But if you copied the right thing, it would copy attack target and paste. That's also extremely helpful too. Compile, save. And so now every time we overlap, it's going to set this to attack target. So if we go into the world, we'll go here, the apostrophe key, and then we'll notice where attack target is none. If I actually walk over here, and now it says top-down character. So we've set the attack target to the player. Perfect. Next thing we need to do is we need it to move to the player. So under here, go back to the behavior tree. We're going to want to go to new task. And then now it's going to set where to do new task. Let me go into monster, new folder, task. Actually, let's go to AI, new folder, tasks. Go into here, cool. And then for behavior tree tasks, leave the BTT or BT task, and then we'll go into naming. So we're gonna go move to attack target. So we want it to move to the player. We're not gonna name it move to player because we want it to move to whatever the attack target is. So if you wanted to specify to something else, there you go. All right. And then every task that we create, things we need to do is create, execute AI, and a finish execute. So every task has to have a finish execute. Otherwise, you'll get stuck on that task and they'll never move on. So just make sure at the end of your code, you finish execute. All right. And from here, we want them to move to the player. So we'll go add a variable, attack target. And then we'll change this to Blackboard selector. Make sure this is instance editable, so that way we can reference it into our behavior tree. We'll grab here. We're going to want to get value as actor. And from here, move to. Let's move that over. And then tack target there. And then for pawn, it's the controlled pawn. And let's change this to 150 right now. Probably lower that a bit, but for now, let's do there. And then for here, on success, finish execute. And then on fail, we'll just connect that as well. So no matter what happens, it's going to finish this. All right. And then let's go back over here. Now let's do BTT move to attack target. Another thing is, let's go, what we want to do is that it's only going to run this as long as attack target is set. So in order to do that, let's right click here and add a decorator in Blackboard. And what this does is it's going to check whatever Blackboard key is set, it'll run this. If not, it won't run it. So Blackboard key attack target, as long as Blackboard key attack target is set, then it will move to the player. Otherwise, it won't. So for that, should be good. And then observer aborts, we'll just go with both, so that if it is not set, then it will exit out. We'll hit save. So now what should happen is the moment we get close, he'll move to us. Nice. And he'll just continuously follow within that range. Awesome. With that, we have that set up. Next, what we want them to do is to attack the player. So after he's moved, we want to attack the player. So what I'm going to do is unhook this and then go with the sequencer. Go over here and connect it. I want to take this blackboard condition and move it onto the sequence. So we're going to run anything that's in the sequence as long as attack target is set. And in case you don't know the difference between selector and sequence, selector will pick the first thing that matches a condition and run whatever that is, and it will just reset back to the first one. So if we had these two like this, the selector will move here as long as it can, and it will run just that one endlessly. If this has a condition where it can't run, it will check it and then go to the next. And then for a sequence, it will run everything in order that is set here. So if we had like 3 of these, it will make sure to run the first, run the second, run the third. The moment it runs into one that cannot activate, it will reset to the beginning. So run the first one, run the second one, and then if it goes to the third one and the third one cannot run, so let's say it had it needed attack target set and it's not, then it will stop and it will go back to the first one. So just quick note on that. All right. So as long as the attack target is set, it will move to the attack target. And the next thing we want to do is we want them to attack. So we'll need now an attacking task. So we'll go over here, blueprint. So I'm going to keep this very generic right now. We're just going to name this elbow attack. That's just because that's what my animation has. You can name it like sword attack, punch, whatever. All right. And we'll go into here. And what we want to do, same thing as always, execute AI, finish, execute. Gonna check that off. All right. So now we want it to play montage. So 2 things we could do. We could just do play montage and then get the mesh off of this person and then connect it to play whatever we want, which is like elbow. Yeah, because I could do, watch. I'll set it up first and then I'll show you what I want to do. We're going to cast this to monster player. And then get the mesh. Can you drag off and get mesh? No, okay. Sorry, just double checking. Connect it there. We'll play the montage and then on complete, finish execute. Uninterrupted, finish execute. All right, so I'll move to player and it should elbow them right afterwards. Go into here. Huh. Play montage. Oh, sorry. Elbow attack. Okay. So, gotta make sure add the task, and then we'll go into here. Bam. And now they'll just elbow me endlessly. And see, this is where the range comes in handy, because they're too far. But what he'll do is he'll stop attacking. Bam. So one thing we could do with there is move to attack player. Let's change this to like 75. Cut that down in half. See how that looks. Bam. Yep, that's better. Well, one thing you'll notice, if I go to the side, he'll just keep going because he's not actually facing me. So we need them to focus on me. So in order to get the player to focus, what we want to do is create a new task. We'll just name this focus. This once again gonna mention again to watch Ali's YouTube videos on smart AI. He has really good stuff there. I got a lot of inspiration off of him. I just iterate that because some of the stuff that I'm doing is very familiar with his beginner tutorials, which do extremely come in handy. So with this, we'll want to do is focus, and then tag the target, blackboard key selector, and let's see, value as object. All right, so from here, we'll actually disconnect this. What we're setting focus, took me a second, is go into here. And actually, another thing we want to do is valid. Connect here. And this is just so that we only set focus as long as that this value is valid. Granted, it shouldn't pass through this if not, but there's always that nice safety check. Go into here. And sometimes if you don't do is valid, you just get errors. So nonetheless, good to check. We'll go into there. Other thing, finish it off, finish execute. We'll go into here, and then we'll just uncheck that. Cool. So with that, we now have our, ignore that. I was doing some bug testing. We have our focus. You want to put it right in the center. Make sure you put the target to attack target. Nice. So that'll set the focus. The other thing we want to do is we want to be able to rotate to face the attack target. So we're setting the focus so the target is focused on the player, and then also to make sure that they rotate directly before attacking. So with that, since we are setting the focus, we also want to make sure is that we have the ability to clear the focus. So we're basically going to duplicate this task in a way simpler manner. So we'll go into new task, we'll go into blueprint, BTT task, and clear focus. This one is going to be significantly easier. Execute AI, clear focus, owner controller, finish, execute. With that is we want to make sure when we go into here that we clear any type of focus that we automatically have. This is so that when you go through this and the player has to move to the target, that they're not looking at them the entire time they're walking. So it gets pretty weird if you don't have it there, but nonetheless, let's compile, let's save that. Let's see, move to player, shouldn't need that anymore. Focus is good. Let's see, clear, focus, awesome. So we'll go into there, and they should move to the player. So it looked like he still was not turning. So actually, I think there's a settings I forgot. Let's go into blueprints. So the other thing is, let's go to yaw. Okay, yeah. So use controller rotation yaw. Just make sure this is ticked on, and it'll make sure to rotate the player, the monster. Sorry. See if you actually scroll down. Let's see, where's it located at? What was it under? Pawn? Yeah, right here. So under pawn, that's where you can find it. Okay. So we go into here. He should be turning now. Yep. So I'll move to the player, attack. Move to player, attack. Nice. He still throws out that extra attack. That's okay. Awesome. Cool. So we now have an attack animation, and then the last thing we want to do is if they are far from the spawn, send them back home. So let's go back to the monster. What we want to do is event. I mean, you could probably do event possessed. We'll want to do is, okay, we're going to get the spawn location. So we want actor location. Gives us the spawn. We need the blackboard. So what I'm going to do is set BB vector. So these are my own functions, just because it's a bit easier, but it's set blackboard value as vector. We'll go to here, and then I'm going to promote this spawn location key. And with that, get rid of that space. Cool. All right. So what that would do is that once it's possessed, it's going to set spawn location as the first place it spawned in. The other thing we need to do is make sure that our blackboard over on the behavior tree has that spawn location value. Spawn location. Cool. So spawn location will be set the moment that they are spawned in. And what we need to do is when they've gone too far, send them back home. And from that, in this tree, what we're going to want to do is we're going to have a selector or sequence, depending on what you want to activate when you're sending them home. What I'm going to do is now create a new task. Let's call this return to spawn. So this is going to be a new, and what we're going to do is send them to the spawn location. Blackboard. Make sure that that is instance editable. Get here. Move to AI move to. Get value as vector. That's the destination. Set accepted radius to whatever you feel is right. It's just going to send them directly home. So we'll do finish execute on success. Yeah, on fail is fine. Cool. So from there, sorry about that. We're now going to go to here. Return to spawn. Sorry about that. Spawn location. And then the other thing we're going to do is the clear focus. So once this has all been cleared, we want to make sure that they're not looking at the player anymore when they're returning to spawn. So important to add that there. And we're going to want to add a decorator. So we only want to activate this when a specific value has been triggered. So we need to calculate when the monster is too far from its spawn location. And we're going to need a service for that. So it's going to check how far the current monster is. So we're going to call this, let's just go with is away from spawn. Go through here. We're going to do a receive tick AI. So it's going to check consistently where the actor currently is and then return it home. Get actor location. We want their current location. We're going to also need the spawn location. Object. Sorry, blackboard key selector, get value as vector, and then we're gonna subtract these two, and then I want to get the length. So we're just doing some simple math between the two, and then make sure the length of it is not exceeding a certain value. So let's say is equal or greater. So if the value ever hits a certain threshold, let's just say 1200, seems the attack range is about 550. Let's do 11 just for like double the monster's attack range. Go into here. So as long as this in fact is true, we're going to want to set the blackboard value as away from home. So we'll also need to add a new blackboard key is away from spawn. We're going to leave that as a bool. So we just want to know if that is true or not. Default, it's not true. We'll go back over here. Going to want to add that is away from spawn. Instance editable. Set value as bool. So if it is true, we'll set that to true. And then that's all we need to do. So for a service, we don't need to do any execute AI or finish execute. So we'll save that. Go back over to our Blackboard, right click, add service, and away from spawn. Make sure to set these two values is away from spawn. Awesome. And show property details, intervals. You can change the amount of time that it's calculating. Cool. Returns. Let's check it out, see if everything's working. Oh, looks like we did something wrong here. Let's check. Oh, there it is. Is away from spawn. There we go. He'll follow now. So debugging. Oh, looks like spawn location's invalid. Let's go back over to our monster. Event possess. Get actor location. Spawn location. Let's change this to begin play. Okay. We got our spawn location. Oh, we saw away from spawn is true. However, he did not return back to the spawn location. He just stood still. If we look over here, it looks like the reason is because we forgot to put this in a sequence, put it in a selector instead. So this is why always double check your work. I want to move that over here, move that. Just clean this up a little bit. Over here. One thing to note is even though it hits true here, he still comes for the final attack and then returns. So Cool. There's also another thing we need to do because now we'll see is away from spawn is true the entire time. So we'll actually have to go back over here into our return to spawn. We want to make sure that the attack target as well as the away from spawn value gets reset. So what we'll need to do is before all of this, actually, we could probably do this after too. Let's move this down. Clear value. I'm going to need 2 of these. All right, let's add the target. And is away from spawn. Let's move that over slightly. I just don't like them looking like that. Okay. Okay. And then from there, we should be good as long as we do a finish execute. Oh, maybe now I could do that, but I'm gonna do this. Organization purposes, shift that over there. Clean that up. Okay. So now when you return, it'll clear both of these. Oop. Let me set to true. He'll return. Looks like it didn't clear. I think it needed to update. True. Returns, and both values are reset. Cool. All right. And with that, we now have a monster that will go and attack, and then it will go and reset. So in the next one, we'll go into doing a more advanced attack so that we are not just playing a montage here, so that we can actually deal damage to them. So we'll also do just like a basic stat system and make sure that they are playing the appropriate attack. Instead of just selecting the montage, we would want to actually get the data and then get whatever montage that we set. So for next time, we'll work on stats and attacking. All right, tune in next time.